Hey, it's your old buddy Lee, the unknown author, and I made a short video about the other little videos that are on my YouTube channel. There's about 150 of them or so. They got little cute pictures on them, and they look like they're professionally made little video shorts. And it just didn't occur to me that people wouldn't understand what they were. Every one of those videos is a video that I made myself on my Chromebook. And I made it by downloading the file from my Docs app on my tablet and putting it into a program called Notebook LM. And in Notebook LM, it takes written text and turns it into a video presentation, kind of like PowerPoint or some of these other programs. The reason I didn't mention it was that over the years, as I've always found out that I was 10 or 15 years behind in technology with most people. Most people knew about high tech and apps and all that years before I did. I've just gotten into it in the last decade, really, understanding applications and internet and all that stuff, I mean, I just assumed that everybody knew that you could make videos on your Chromebook. And I'm sorry I made a bad assumption. If there's anybody out there that has questions about Notebook LM and its ability to make videos, if you leave the question, I'll be glad to answer it. In fact, if you actually had a 2-page story and pasted it onto the comment section, I could make a video out of your 2 pages. If you wrote a 2-page story and put it up here on my comment section, I could copy your comment, your 2-page story, put it into the Notebook LM app, and I could make a video out of your story. And it would look professional. Often it has 2 different people, a man and a woman, discussing the story, telling the story, analyzing the story. Most of the videos are 7 to 9 minutes long, and they take a deep dive in analyzing your story and telling it. And they put in art and all that. It's really pretty cool. I just made the mistake of figuring that everybody knew about it. I thought that I was coming along 10 years late and you guys were all 10 years ahead of me. And that when you saw it, you'd instantly know what it was. And realize that all those videos weren't some videos that I got off of television or off a video or something like that. I created every one of those videos. I went through the steps, the process. First, I wrote the stories. Then I edited the stories. Then I loaded my stories onto my Docs file, which is in cloud storage. It's not even on my computer. And then when I felt like it, or when I got around to it, I downloaded the files off of the cloud and put them into the app. The app is Notebook LM. And that's what they called it for the last couple of years that I've been using it. Although recently, Google has now integrated GEMINI with Notebook LM, and it's called GEMINI Notebook LM. Now, I'm just assuming that you guys know what GEMINI is, too. GEMINI is an artificial intelligence assistant that can do everything. You ask it any question, and it'll tell you the answer. Any historical fact, any geography, really virtually anything you can think of, you can go on Gemini and ask, and it'll give you an in-depth study, show you diagrams, pictures. I use it often when I write a story. It really helps me to get into the story. If I describe the scene to Gemini, and Gemini will actually create a picture of what I described. If I ask Gemini, hey, would you create 8 people sitting around a seance table, and there's a candle in the middle and a crystal ball, and a couple of them are real old ladies that look like gypsies, and blah blah blah, and describe everything in the that I want to see in the image, Gemini will create that image, put it on the screen. I can download the image, and then when I look at it, it kind of gets me more into my story, when I can actually look at a picture and see the old gypsy Madame Tatiana Lupensky sitting there at the seance table with ectoplasm coming out of her ears. And I often do that with my stories, that I'll create images and look the images over so that it helps me to kind of get into the story more. One of my stories was Tori St. Cloud. It was about a woman that was actually a robot. She was a robot woman, and I asked Gemini to create a picture of what an artificial human would look like. And it created it, and it showed me this kind of combination of a robot human being, and it was just awesome looking. It was as good of an image as you ever want to see in a sci-fi magazine. And Gemini created it out of thin air just based on what I described to it. So it's just an amazing tool. When I wrote my book, The Realm of Gardenia, I asked Gemini to create images of what the ants and the bugs and the other animals in my story look like. And when I saw the images that Gemini created, it inspired me and got me even more pumped to write the story. There was a couple of lizards, and they were brothers, and they were part of the story. They were a couple of the bad guys in the story, these 2 lizard brothers. I got on there and asked Gemini to create a animation type of picture of what the 2 bad guys look like, the 2 lizards. And Gemini created the most cool looking image of a couple of lizards that you ever saw. They were like cartoon-like lizards, like you'd see Disney Studios produce or something like that. The characters in my story, The Realm of Gardenia, it was a boy ant named Dexter, and a bug named Slooky, and a girl sidekick and all that. And I asked Gemini to create cartoon-like images of all the characters in my story, The Realm of Gardenia. And they were just awesome. They looked as good as anything I'd ever seen on Disney or any other company that made images like that. I made 7 different ant kingdoms: red ants, brown ants, sand ants, fire ants, different ants. And every one of their realm kingdoms was different. Some of them lived in the woods, some of them lived near the desert, some of them lived near a pond. Every insect kingdom was a little bit different and unique because it was in a unique environmental location. So each one of the kingdoms was a castle. They all had the similar characteristic that they had a castle, but each castle was different based on its environmental setting. And to help me to understand it and see it in perspective, I asked Gemini to create a map of the realm of Gardenia. And it turned out to be like the best poster that you ever laid eyes on in your life. I'm not kidding you. It showed each one of the kingdoms. Now that I recall, just off the top of my head, there were 6 kingdoms. And the image showed the 6 kingdoms with the castle in the center, the little ant villages around it. It was just adorable, the cutest thing. You'd go to a poster shop and pay 10 or 15 bucks for a poster that was like that, really. But it was just incredible. And so Gemini helped me to visualize what the realm of Gardenia looked like. I'd describe what I wanted, show me a tree, but include the root system and the little tunnels and the features that are underneath the tree, like a cutaway view. Show a split view where you show the top of the tree and all the animals that live on top of the surface of the earth, but also show us the level below the earth where bugs, centipedes, and snakes and worms and animals that live in the dirt underground exist, and show both worlds. You know, the below the earth on the bottom, on top show the robins in the trees and the fox and the raccoon and all the land animals. It was fantastic, the images that Gemini used and created for me based on what I told Gemini that I wanted it to do. And so it really helped me tremendously. When I wrote the story about the Waitman House seance, I asked Gemini to create a scary old 4-story Victorian house that looked eerie, and it created an awesome image. Now I have to tell you, I never used any of my images in any of my books. All my books are all just text. There's no pictures inside of my books of any kind. I leave that up to the reader's imagination. I just use the images to help me craft my stories because it kind of fired my imagination. You know, when I saw that old Victorian house, and I could even say, hey Gemini, put a shadowy looking figure standing in one of the windows looking out of the house, and it would make the image, and I'd look at that and I'd see that image standing in the window, and I just thought, oh man, this is too cool. I can't show you the images. I haven't figured out how to do that on YouTube yet. I wish I could, because they'd just blow your mind. The images that Gemini can produce, as you described to him, it can just create the most mind-boggling images you can imagine. I've produced, I'd say at least in the hundreds, you know, probably close to 1,000, maybe even more, because I've lost count. I've got my hard drive is full of the images. I wish I could show them to you, because some of them are so unique. I asked them to make characters from the Alice in Wonderland, but in a different type of artistic style, so that they looked really odd and kind of freaky, you know. And man, when Gemini made those images, they were just so cool. I've had a hard time wanting to even discard or delete any of them. I just wanted to save every image because they were just so fantastic art. I know some people don't like AI, and I understand that, but as a writer, I use those images to fire my imagination, to make me able to add more depth and flavor and color to my stories, because the images are inspiring. If you can actually see what the Wicked Witch looks like, it makes her that much scarier. So when you write the story, you use more descriptive language to describe what you saw in the image, you know. I hope you understand what I'm talking about. But anyway, I just wanted to tell you a little bit about the technology, and I always thought I was really 10 years behind most of you guys. I didn't realize that any of you didn't know how incredible Google apps are and what you can really do with them when they're unleashed. They are just the most amazing. We just live in the most amazing time, 2026. Man, if you ever wanted to live in the world, this is the time to be here. There's no question about it. We're living the age of miracles. Well, anyway, listen, I just wanted to tell you real quick about it. Come on back another time, and I'll be here with some other story to tell you. Have a great one. Bye-bye.